am I supposed to do that when I am stuck in here?
I'm gonna play 20 questions, and they're all yours.
Just don't get on the tree. Fuck's sake. You have nothing to prove.
See you on that days.
American Gods was the most important fantasy adaptation of the last decade. Not the biggest, not the most watched, the most important. And Starz killed it while it still had everything. Not because the story ran out, not because the audience disappeared, because 3 separate disasters hit this show at the same time, and any one of them alone might have been survivable. All 3 together, no chance. This is the complete story. The book that launched it, the showrunner who nearly broke the budget building something extraordinary, the network that pulled the rug out from under its own creation, and the behind-the-scenes chaos that turned what should have been one of television's defining achievements into a cautionary tale that Hollywood still hasn't learned from. Part 1. The Book and the Promise. If you haven't read the novel, here's what you need to know. And if you have, stick with me because this context matters. Neil Gaiman published American Gods in 2001. It won the Hugo Award, the Nebula Award, the Bram Stoker Award, and the Locus Award, all in the same year. That doesn't happen. That's a full house in literary fantasy, and it told the publishing world something simple. This book is different. The premise sounds insane when you describe it out loud. Shadow Moon, a man getting out of prison, gets hired by a mysterious con man called Mr. Wednesday, who is actually Odin, the Norse god, in human form. Wednesday is trying to rally the old gods of mythology, who have been forgotten and are now living as shadows of themselves across America. Anansi drives a limo, Chernobog works in a slaughterhouse, a leprechaun named Mad Sweeney is picking fights in dive bars, and they're all going to war against the new gods, media, technology, the intangible forces of the modern world made flesh. It's a road novel about America's soul, about what this country does to the things people bring across the ocean. It's violent and strange and melancholy and funny, and for a long time, everyone assumed it was unfilmable. HBO tried first. Tom Hanks's production company, Playtone, developed it from 2011. Gaiman co-wrote a pilot. Then the executive who bought it left, and the new regime didn't know what to do with it. Gaiman later told The Hollywood Reporter that by the time they handed in drafts, the network was dealing with people who didn't really know what this thing was, didn't know why they had it, and didn't really want it. HBO let the rights lapse in 2013. Enter Fremantle Media. They acquired the rights in 2014 and immediately attached 2 showrunners who seemed, on paper, perfectly designed for this material. Bryan Fuller had created Dead Like Me, Pushing Daisies, and most recently, Hannibal. 3 shows with completely distinct visual languages, all of them doing something television wasn't supposed to do, at their budgets. Fuller understood Gaiman's sensibility. He'd been a fan of the book. Michael Green had worked on Heroes and Kings, and more recently, Everwood. And crucially, he and Fuller had history together. They were friends. They trusted each other. Starz officially greenlit the series in June 2015, and when they started talking about what they wanted to make, it sounded extraordinary. Every god would get their own story. The show would expand characters Gaiman only sketched. Bilquis, whose whole novel appearance is a single chapter, would become a major arc. Laura Moon, who barely appears alive in the book, would be a co-lead. Mad Sweeney, a background figure, would get real screen time. Gaiman himself was enthusiastic. He told Deadline in 2016, "The book itself exists almost entirely from Shadow's point of view. We can watch what happens to Mad Sweeney." This was the promise. This was what the announcement of the show felt like to anyone paying attention. Not just an adaptation, an expansion, a world that would make the novel bigger. The premiere date was set for April 30th, 2017. Part 2. The Rise. Season 1 of American Gods arrived and delivered almost everything those promises implied. The Starz premiere drew almost 1.6 million viewers across all platforms in its first 7 days, a record for a Starz series debut at the time. Critics responded with a 92% on Rotten Tomatoes. The show received Emmy nominations for main title design and visual effects. 2 episodes in, Starz renewed it for a second season. 2 episodes. That's how confident everyone was. And the show earned it. Fuller and Green built something audacious. The visual language, Long takes, slow zooms, blood that moved like water, sex that felt ancient. Didn't look like anything else on TV. The cold opens, called Coming to America sequences, showed how each god arrived on American shores. A Viking sacrifice on a beach, an African god born from the first slave ship, a prayer bleeding through the walls of an immigrant tenement. They were standalone short films, each one distinct, each one devastating. The casting was extraordinary. Ricky Whittle as Shadow carried the emotional weight of every scene he was in. Ian McShane as Mr. Wednesday was doing the best work of his television career. Charming, dangerous, unknowable. Emily Browning as Laura brought a blackly comic fury to a character who barely existed in the source material. Pablo Schreiber as Mad Sweeney was revelatory. And then there was Gillian Anderson as Media, inhabiting icons. Lucille Ball, David Bowie, Marilyn Monroe, in a way that felt genuinely unnerving. Kristen Chenoweth appeared in a single episode as Easter and stole it completely. For book readers, every choice felt considered. For casual viewers, none of it required homework. This was prestige television operating at its ceiling. Starz had a hit. Everyone knew it. The industry was watching. And then, within 6 months of the finale airing, everything went wrong. Before we get into the disaster, and it is a total disaster, 3 of them stacked on top of each other, tap the notification bell right now. This channel goes deep on exactly this kind of story. The business mechanics behind shows you loved, the decisions you never heard about, that killed them. The algorithm rewards the bell. Use it. Part 3. Villain number 1. The perfectionist who broke the bank. Here's what you need to understand about Bryan Fuller before we go any further. Fuller had made Hannibal at NBC, a network procedural budget, a prestige cable sensibility. He'd learned to work beautifully within constraints. But American Gods was different. Starz gave him the keys to something with real scope, and the ambitions expanded to fill the space, and then some. Season 1 was built to run 10 episodes. It ended up airing 8. The cuts happened in stages. Fuller and Green shot material they weren't satisfied with, pulled it, rewrote it, reshot it. The creative standards were uncompromising. The result was television that looked like nothing else. It was also, according to The Hollywood Reporter's definitive February 2018 investigation, approximately $30 million over budget. That's not a rounding error. That's a separate television season worth of money. To understand the magnitude of that figure, Game of Thrones in its first seasons cost HBO around $6 million per episode. American Gods. Season 1 was running at approximately $10 million per episode on a network the size of Starz. When Fremantle, the production company that actually owned the show and was responsible for those costs, looked at Season 2, they had a decision to make. They set a hard cap, $9 million per episode. Fuller and Green pushed back. They argued Season 2 needed to be 10 episodes and needed a budget that matched the ambition. Fremantle said no. The two parties could not reach an agreement. On November 29, 2017, Variety broke the news. Fuller and Green were out. 6 months after the most acclaimed season Starz had ever produced. 6 months after the industry had been talking about American Gods as the next great prestige drama. Before a single frame of Season 2 had been filmed. The official language was careful. Starz CEO Chris Albrecht said at TCA in January 2018 that they were not fired, nor did they quit. But The Hollywood Reporter's Leslie Goldberg, who had been working that story for weeks, reported flatly that they were fired. And in a since-deleted tweet, Fuller wrote, "We were dedicated to cast, crafted the season, wrote 5 episodes, even had Media as Mr. Rogers and Princess Leia. We were in the process of reducing scope due to a dramatic budget reduction when we were fired." Think about what that line contains. Media as Mr. Rogers, Media as Princess Leia. That was Season 2 of American Gods under Bryan Fuller. That was the show that didn't get made. And the knock-on consequences were immediate. Gillian Anderson had joined American Gods because of Bryan Fuller. Full stop. At TCA in January 2018, she said it plainly. "I'm not doing any more American Gods. Bryan and Michael Green aren't either. As has been announced, no Fuller, no Anderson." Kristen Chenoweth had appeared in 1 episode as Easter, a performance so good it was going to be a major Season 2 arc. When her departure was confirmed that October, she told TV Line, "I couldn't come back without him. It wouldn't be right." Season 2 of American Gods had just lost its creative vision, its media, and its Easter, and the season hadn't started yet. Part 4, Villain Number 2, the showrunner who couldn't hold it together. Fremantle needed a replacement. Multiple showrunners passed on the job, reportedly out of professional loyalty to Fuller and Green. The person who eventually took it was Jesse Alexander, a television writer with real credentials. He had worked on Alias: Lost Heroes, and most relevantly, Hannibal, where he and Fuller had worked together. His Lost writing staff shared a drama series Emmy in 2005. He knew the material, he knew the creative DNA of the show. He was announced as showrunner on February 2nd, 2018. Gaiman gave him a warm statement. Things looked like they might stabilize. They didn't. Filming was plagued by delays. Scripts were late, and when they arrived, they were rejected. According to The Hollywood Reporter's September 2018 investigation by Leslie Goldberg and Maureen Ryan, Alexander submitted multiple drafts of the Season 2 finale, reaching a 7th draft that was still not approved. Production fell 6 weeks behind schedule, and by mid-August 2018, Alexander was effectively removed from the show's day-to-day operations. THR described his status as fired but not fired, still technically the showrunner on paper, but banned from set, from editing rooms, from anything resembling production. Producing director Chris Byrne and line producer Lisa Kustner finished the season. The episode order was trimmed from 10 to 8 again. Premiere was pushed back nearly a year from the original plan, finally landing on March 10, 2019. And Starz, seemingly oblivious to the PR damage of 2 consecutive showrunner collapses, made things worse during the gap. At the 2018 TCA, a Starz executive suggested that Neil Gaiman would be stepping in to showrun Season 2 himself. Gaiman publicly denied it within hours, calling the characterization fictional. The network was announcing things its own creator was contradicting in real time. When Season 2 finally aired, the audience could feel the seams. The anthology-style cold opens that had made Season 1 so distinctive were diminished. The pacing dragged. Characters who had seemed vibrant in Season 1 felt adrift. Critics noticed. The season landed at 61% on Rotten Tomatoes and a 47 on Metacritic, where Season 1 had scored a 77. Viewership fell by more than half from Season 1's averages. Ian McShane, looking back on the whole thing from the outside, put it as plainly as anyone could. In a Den of Geek interview in March 2019, lawyers were involved. You couldn't talk about shit. I think it's a lot to do with ego, hubris, and money. Who knows what the hell happened between Fremantle and Michael and Bryan? That question, who knows what happened, was the answer. Nobody was steering. The show was running on fumes and goodwill, and both were running out. If you're finding this useful, please hit that hype button and drop a like so the video can reach more people. It costs nothing to you, and it matters to people who would miss it out. Part 5, Villain Number 3, the network that changed the rules. While the creative side of American Gods was unraveling, something larger was happening at Starz itself. And this is the part of the story that almost never gets told. For most of its history, Starz was the premium cable network you got by accident when you upgraded your cable package. Outlander was their signature hit. Power was their big bet on urban drama. American Gods was supposed to be their prestige fantasy flagship, the thing that put them in the same conversation as HBO. But in early 2019, CEO Chris Albrecht resigned and was replaced by his COO, Jeffrey Hirsch, who became president and CEO that September. And Hirsch had a clear, publicized strategic vision. Starz was going to become the destination for women and underrepresented audiences. This wasn't subtle. He said it repeatedly to press. THR reported that by 2020, 11 of 16 Starz showrunners were women, 5 of them women of color. American Gods, a show featuring a male lead, a male god as its central villain, and a majority male focus, was not that strategy. THR's cancellation report noted directly that the show had the lowest composition of women of any Starz series in the past 2 years, and Fremantle owned it, not Starz. Every dollar Starz spent on the show built Fremantle's asset, not their own. In the streaming era, where subscriber data determines everything, paying to produce shows you don't own is a losing strategy. The audience was still there, but the network had moved the goalposts, and nobody told the show. Then, in December 2019, the third bomb dropped. Part 6, The End of the Road. Season 3 premiered on January 10, 2021. 10 episodes. New showrunner, a tighter focus on the novel's lakeside section, which is genuinely one of the book's best stretches. Shadow living quietly in a small Wisconsin town while a series of child disappearances builds around him. The critical consensus improved 74% on Rotten Tomatoes. After 2 seasons of chaos, the show found something resembling stability. It wasn't enough. The viewership was a fraction of what Season 1 had drawn, and then the Season 3 finale aired, and American Gods ended in the most brutal way a prestige fantasy can end. Not with a battle, not with resolution. With Shadow Moon pinned to the world tree, Mr. Wednesday's long con revealed he engineered his own son's death as a blood sacrifice to restore his own power, and the war between old gods and new completely unresolved. The story didn't end, it stopped. Gaiman, in an interview during Season 3's run, had already articulated exactly how precarious this was. If we don't get a Season 4, we've ended on the single most frustrating, upsetting, and maddening place that any season could possibly end. On March 29th, 2021, 8 days after that finale aired, Starz canceled American Gods. Ricky Whittle was publicly heartbroken. Whittle tweeted that he and Gaiman and the cast were still committed to completing the story. Gaiman posted, "It's definitely not dead. Fremantle are committed to finishing the story. Right now, we're all just waiting to see which way forward is best, and who it'll be with." There was talk of a wrap-up movie, an event series. Netflix was mentioned. Amazon was mentioned. Gaiman had signed an overall deal with them in 2018, and they'd been the show's international distributor. None of it materialized. The conversations went quiet, then they went silent, and then in 2024, allegations surfaced against Neil Gaiman himself, the kind that don't allow for quiet revivals or renewed conversations. The door that was already closing shut completely. American Gods is over. Not because it ran out of story, not because the audience abandoned it, because the forces that conspired against it were more numerous and more powerful than any single person could fight. Orlando Jones, who had played Mr. Nancy, the Anansi figure, across 2 seasons, and who had been a fan favorite for bringing electricity and menace to every scene he was in, announced publicly that he had been fired. He'd been let go on September 10th, 2019 by the Season 3 showrunner, Charles Sheik Egley, who had taken over after Alexander's removal. Jones went public on social media with a specific, explosive claim. He had been told that Mr. Nancy, with his angry, confrontational energy, sent the wrong message for Black America. He stopped short of naming Egley directly in his original video, but the reference was unmistakable. He said he was told this. He never claimed to hear it from Egley personally, and the two had reportedly never spoken directly. The story became a flashpoint. The official Fremantle/American Gods response was that Mr. Nancy simply didn't appear in the book's Lakeside arc that Season 3 would be adapting, making the character structurally absent from the story. Starz CEO Hirsch echoed that framing at TCA in January 2020, calling Jones a tremendous talent, but saying Mr. Nancy lacked a prominent role in the planned storyline. The fandom split immediately. Some believed the creative rationale. Others saw a deeper institutional dysfunction, a show that had already lost its vision, its lead actress, its Easter goddess, its second showrunner, and now its most magnetic supporting character, with the reason offered being disputed by the man who was fired. Bryan Fuller's response to Jones's firing was unambiguous, in all capitals on Twitter. Heartbreaking. Orlando is a pro, a thoughtful creative partner, an insightful storyteller, and a remarkable human being. Even from the outside, Fuller was still the most reliable voice on what this show had lost. Part 7. The Real Tragedy. There's a specific kind of grief that comes with a story like this. It's different from a show that ran its course or peaked and faded naturally. American Gods was killed by something avoidable. If Bryan Fuller's Season 1 ambition had been paired with a network whose budget structure could absorb it, if this had been HBO, which had greenlit it and let it go, we might be talking about this show the way we talk about The Wire or Deadwood. The creative vision was there, the cast was there, the source material was there, but it wasn't HBO. It was Starz, a network competing against giants with a fraction of their resources, and Fremantle, a production company that needed costs contained and a showrunner whose standard of excellence was incompatible with the financial reality of where the show lived. 3 parties who all wanted success and couldn't agree on what success was allowed to cost. And then the structure that replaced Fuller wasn't strong enough to survive the weight it was asked to carry. Jesse Alexander was dropped into one of the most chaotic productions in recent television history, a show with no finished scripts, a budget war still smoldering, a cast who'd just watched their creative champion be removed and expected to hold it together. He couldn't, and every subsequent showrunner inherited the damage. The network's pivot away from the show's audience profile was the final structural blow. Even if the creative side had stabilized, even if Season 3 had been as good as Season 1, it was making the wrong product for the network it lived on. In that environment, the only outcome was cancellation. The only variable was when. Ian McShane, looking back in early 2024, said the show never really recovered its momentum, which was a shame because I think it could have gone on to something pretty good. That's the most damning thing you can say about American Gods. Not that it was bad, that it could have been something, that the something was visible, was demonstrably achievable, and was dismantled by ego and money and institutional cowardice and bad luck piling up at the exact moment it needed none of those things. Shadow Moon endures everything. Loss, manipulation, a cosmic con game orchestrated by the father who never acknowledged him and comes through changed but not destroyed. He survives the world tree. He finds something on the other side. The show never got to show us that. And that's the rise and fall of American Gods. A perfect storm that destroyed something that deserved better. What do you think? Was Fuller's ambition the original sin, or was Starz' pivot the real killer? Was this salvageable at any point? Drop it in the comments. I read every single one, and I have a feeling this one is going to run long. If this video gave you something, if you'd been waiting for someone to connect all of it, the budget numbers, the showrunner carousel, the strategic mismatch, the Orlando Jones story, share it with whoever you watch this show with. That's the best thing you can do. And if there's another franchise autopsy you want me to dig into next, put it in the comments. The next one is already in production.